Today, we're taking a deep dive into precisely such a shift, the deepening relationship between Poland and Italy, specifically what's being dubbed the tightening Warsaw-Rome axis. And this isn't just about two countries engaging in standard diplomacy. It seems it's about them actively forming a pretty formidable working bloc inside the EU. All of our insights for this exploration, just so you know, come from a really incisive analysis by Polska Dziś in their September 5th report. It delved into this phenomenon under the telling title Osała Wrzym I Bezpieczeństwo Regionalne, which, well, it translates roughly to the Warsaw-Rome axis and regional security. And believe me, this report offers some genuinely surprising facts.
Yeah, what's really fascinating here, and what we really aim to unpack for you today, is how these seemingly disparate events, diplomatic, security, economic, are actively weaving together. They're forming this powerful new narrative within the European Union. So our mission today is basically to extract the most important nuggets of knowledge from this Polska Dziś report, to go beyond just the surface stuff and really understand the why it matters behind these strategic moves. We want to show how this new axis isn't just, making noise, but actually building significant leverage quietly.
Exactly. We're peeling back the layers, trying to discover those surprising facts and the strategic undercurrents that are actively reshaping power dynamics within the EU. So let's jump right in. Let's start with the very formation of this Warsaw-Rome axis and figure out what makes it such a significant new EU bloc. All right, so the report kicks off by detailing a key meeting. This seems to be what really set the axis in motion. The encounter between Poland's President Nawrocki and Italy's Prime Minister Meloni. Now, on the surface, you might think, okay, just another diplomatic visit. But from your reading, what made this particular meeting and their talks so much more than just standard protocol? What was it that made this encounter really interesting, for us watching these things?
That's a crucial point. The report really makes it clear this wasn't just a photo op or a courtesy call. It was a deliberate alignment of, strategic interests. They didn't just meet, they truly synced. And they synced on several critical issues. The key areas of consensus, as highlighted by Polska Dziś, were basically threefold. First, unwavering support for Ukraine. Second, a shared vision for robust defense co-production. And third, a unified stance on needing tougher, more effective migration tools. And these aren't minor talking points, right? These are three of maybe the most contentious and defining issues currently facing the EU.
Right. And the fact that they found such strong common ground on these specific points is incredibly telling, isn't it? Especially, I think, on defense co-production and migration. Could you maybe elaborate a bit on why those two areas in particular signal a deeper strategic partnership? And maybe what does defense co-production actually mean in practical terms? Is it just buying weapons from each other?
Good question. No, it's definitely more than that. When we talk about defense co-production, it's not just Italy selling tanks to Poland or vice versa, like you said. It's really about jointly designing, manufacturing, maybe even sharing critical defense technologies and intellectual property. So for a country like Poland and Italy, this means potentially more resilient supply chains, things that aren't solely reliant on, say, American or other external partners. It means a stronger domestic industrial base for both, and ultimately, greater strategic autonomy in defense. And given the current geopolitical climate, especially with the war in Ukraine ongoing, this kind of shared industrial capability it's a massive deal. It offers deeper integration and, frankly, mutual reliance. And then on migration, their alignment for tougher migration tools is equally significant. I mean, within the EU, migration policy has been just deeply divisive, hasn't it? It often creates these fault lines between member states, maybe between Western European nations often advocating for more integrated approaches, and some Central and Eastern European countries pushing for tighter border controls. So this shared stance from Warsaw and Rome, it challenges existing narratives and creates a powerful new voice advocating for a very specific approach. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, a new working bloc like this isn't just about bilateral agreements. The source Polska Dziś observes these talks are actually turning warm words into a working bloc inside the EU, which means they're aiming for a coordinated front within the larger European framework. Such an alignment allows for shared policy positions, maybe even a unified voting bloc on certain issues, and that could impact everything from budget allocations to, legislative initiatives.
Okay, so if Poland and Italy consistently push for, say, a bigger common defense fund.
Exactly. Their combined weight could fundamentally shift the direction of European spending.
Yeah.
It might override older alliances or force new priorities onto the union's agenda. That's potentially a game changer for internal EU politics. It represents a subtle but potentially powerful realignment of forces.
Wow. So not just tactical voting, but potentially reshaping internal political power dynamics. That collective weight really does change the game. Okay, so with this new Warsaw-Rome axis solidifying politically, the obvious next question is, how does this new leverage translate into action, specifically in the very high-stakes arena of regional security and Poland's diplomatic maneuvering? The Polska GZR's report really shines a light on Poland's very careful, almost strategic approach to the ongoing conflict in Ukraine. It mentions these Paris talks pushing for a common framework for Ukraine guarantees. Can you elaborate on what these talks are and what does Safe Skies for Ukraine actually entail? Poland's reportedly backing this, but without wanting to sleepwalk into direct conflict. How do they manage that?
Certainly. The Paris talks refer to a series of high-level diplomatic discussions, primarily involving France, Germany, other key allies. The aim is to establish a long-term security framework, guarantees for Ukraine after the conflict, designing a stable future. Now, within these talks, Poland is advocating for safe skies. This commitment, it seems, goes beyond just supplying weapons. It potentially involves more robust air defense systems, maybe enhanced air surveillance, measures designed to prevent aerial attacks. But crucially, without necessarily deploying NATO jets directly into Ukrainian airspace. It's a very, very fine line to walk, providing strong defense capabilities without directly escalating to a military confrontation with Russia. The report emphasizes Poland's clear intention to avoid that sleepwalking into direct conflict. It shows a pragmatic, cautious stance amid really high tensions.
That's a critical distinction. Okay. And speaking of high-level support, the U.S. footing in Poland, that's always a huge factor for regional security, right? The report mentions a White House stop confirming that current U.S. troop levels in Poland hold. But then it adds this crucial detail. There's headroom for more, if Warsaw asks. What does that signal about the American commitment and how Poland sees its own security setup?
Well, it signals a highly flexible and responsive American commitment, which certainly plays into Poland's strategic calculations. Headroom for more, if Warsaw asks, means the U.S. isn't just maintaining its current presence, which is already substantial, but is prepared to rapidly scale up if the regional security situation demands it. This indicates, I think, deep trust and highly integrated defense planning between Washington and Warsaw. For Poland, this isn't just about having boots on the ground. It's about having a credible, adaptable deterrent that can respond to evolving threats. It lets Poland maintain a strong defensive posture, but with the backing of a global superpower. That's, well, invaluable.
Right, and these moves aren't happening in a vacuum.
Precisely. If we link these actions to the current geopolitical climate, we see these developments are happening literally in the context of the week's heaviest strikes on Ukraine. Unquote. The immediate NATO response has been to keep air policing staying alert. And Poland, for its part, is maintaining a vigilant quick scramble posture along its borders. A quick scramble posture just means their Air Force jets are kept at a very high state of readiness. They can launch interceptors within minutes to respond to any incursions or threats. This constant vigilance really underscores the very real and immediate threats in the region. It highlights the direct impact of the conflict on NATO's eastern flank. The Polska GZR report synthesizes these elements quite nicely, actually, calls it a deterrent stack. And the analysis is pretty clear. EU alignment plus U.S. presence solo posturing, which raises an important question, doesn't it? How does combining these elements, the internal EU alliances like Warsaw-Rome, the robust U.S. support, and active border defense, create a stronger bulwark than any nation acting alone?
Okay, so how does it create that stronger bulwark?
Think of it this way. A single country trying to deter a larger power is maybe like one person shouting in a huge stadium. That's hard to hear. But when you have a unified bloc like this Warsaw-Rome axis, plus it's supported by the immense military and diplomatic weight of the United States, you're looking at a coordinated, multi-layered defense system. It sends an unmistakable signal that any hostile action would face not just one opponent, but a formidable integrated front. That makes aggression significantly riskier, less appealing for any potential aggressor. It's about shared responsibility and integrated capabilities that really amplify strength exponentially.
That makes sense. A unified front definitely amplifies strength. But, okay, how does this new geopolitical alignment then connect with Poland's economic stability and its strategic industrial ambitions? The report touches upon the National Bank of Poland, the NBP, and its steady, careful stance. They recently trimmed rates, but their current tone is very much adjust if needed. What does that steady, careful approach tell us about the NBP's strategy right now, and what specific economic indicators are they watching most closely?
Yeah, the NBP's steady, careful stance indicates a central bank that's, well, navigating a complex economic landscape with a lot of prudence. Trimming rates typically aims to stimulate economic growth, sure, but their adjust if needed tone signals real caution against reigniting inflation. It means they're ready to reverse course or take further action if conditions shift unexpectedly. The report specifically highlights the two critical barometers they're watching: inflation prints and the zloty's mood swing. Inflation prints were just the regular reports on consumer prices, or are they rising too quickly? And the zloty's mood swing refers to the volatility and trend of the Polish currency against, say, the euro or the dollar. A weakening zloty can make imports more expensive, fuel inflation. Excessive strengthening can harm exports. So they're constantly balancing domestic growth, price stability, and these external economic pressures. It's tricky.
What's fascinating here, though, is how that economic angle circles right back to the Warsaw-Rome axis and the potential industrial upside the report identifies. What exactly are these Italy tie-ups? How could they translate into tangible benefits like air defense depth and shared supply chains for Poland?
Right, the report points to a really significant industrial upside from these deepening ties. Italy tie-ups basically refer to strategic partnerships, joint ventures, collaborative industrial projects between Polish and Italian companies, especially in the defense sector. The idea is that this axis isn't just political or military, it has a strong economic backbone too. So for Poland, this could mean air defense depth, which points to an enhanced capability to protect its airspace, maybe through co-development or co-production of advanced missile systems, radar technologies with Italy. It's about building a more robust, more self-reliant defense industry. And shared supply chains are equally crucial, especially now. By integrating their industrial bases, particularly for critical components, strategic goods, both countries can reduce their reliance on more distant or, frankly, politically unstable suppliers. This makes their economies, and especially their defense production, far more resilient against global shocks or disruptions. So it's kind of a win-win. Poland gains access to advanced Italian industrial expertise. Italy finds a strong, strategically located partner with a growing defense budget.
Okay, that makes sense. However, the report also throws in a crucial economic cautionary note. It labels it policy risk. It states that any fresh easing from the NBP, like more rate cuts, depends on inflation staying tame. Can you explain the balancing act the NBP is performing here? What are the broader implications if they get it wrong?
This policy risk really highlights the very delicate balancing act the NBP is performing. It's a tightrope walk. They want to support economic growth, maybe through lower interest rates, but they absolutely cannot afford to let inflation surge again. That could destabilize the whole economy, erode consumer purchasing power, everything. So if inflation doesn't stay tame, and the NDP is forced to either hike rates or just keep them high, well, that could stifle the very industrial growth and investment they're hoping to achieve through these international partnerships, like with Italy. The wrong move could impact not just domestic stability, but also how attractive Poland is for these big industrial tie-ups. It could potentially hinder the long-term benefits of the Warsaw-Rome axis. It really shows that even with strong geopolitical will, economic fundamentals remain, paramount.
Okay, so if we connect all these dots, the strategic formation of this new internal EU alliance, Poland's careful navigation of regional security with strong U.S. backing, and the meticulous management of its economy for stability and industrial growth. What does this all mean for understanding Poland's place on the European stage right now? It really paints a picture of a nation actively and quite strategically shaping its own future, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. I think what we see here is Poland playing a much more assertive, calculated role than perhaps some might have expected a few years ago. They are not merely reacting to events anymore. They seem to be proactively building this network of alliances and capabilities. The Rome-Warsaw corridor isn't just about shared values, though those might exist. It seems to be a strategic formation, one designed to impact policy, enhance security, and secure economic advantages. It's really about building a holistic geopolitical strategy combining diplomatic muscle, military deterrence, and economic resilience. It demonstrates a sophisticated understanding of how power operates in the modern European landscape.
So just to recap our deep dive today, based on this Polska GCA's report, it paints a clear, compelling picture. We're witnessing the strategic formation of the Rome-Warsaw corridor as a significant working bloc. It's having an immediate, tangible impact on regional security posture. And it's all underpinned by this careful economic navigation from Poland. The overarching theme from the source resonates powerfully. Less chest thumping, more circuit building, that's the week's theme.
Yeah, and that phrase circuit building, I think that perfectly captures the nuanced strategy at play here. It's about constructing practical, functional alliances and capabilities rather than maybe relying on grand, sometimes hollow pronouncements. So, yeah, keep your eyes on that Rome Warsaw corridor because that's precisely where this quiet leverage seems to be forming. It's not about loud declarations, perhaps, but about subtle, impactful power shifts and these strategic partnerships that are reshaping the EU from within.
Which leaves us with something to think about, doesn't it? Think about how these kinds of quiet strategic partnerships, focused on practical cooperation rather than grandstanding, how might they fundamentally reshape not just European defense and economic policy, but also the internal power dynamics of the EU itself? I mean, what does it mean for the traditional power centers when new focus circuit building alliances emerge? Alliances proving their efficacy through tangible results rather than just rhetoric. Consider how this could be setting the stage for the next decade of European diplomacy and what that means for the balance of power, not just on the continent, but maybe globally.